Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to a special offensive pre-spring practice edition of We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle. Today, we break down position by position the offense heading into spring ball. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion with We Are SC columnists and staff writers. We start with the pregame show where we introduce our panel members for this special offensive edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle and give you the latest USC Trojans football news. First, let's meet this week's panelists. Marc Kulkin, We Are SC columnist, who writes the Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season football and practice reports. Erik McKinney, publisher and editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, and Greg Katz, that's me, your host and moderator of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and a weekly We Are SC columnist who writes the obvious and not so obvious and IMHO Sunday. Before we kick off our special offensive spring practice edition, here's the latest USC football news. Although no official announcement has been made as yet, USC spring ball under Lincoln Riley is expected to begin next Tuesday, March 22nd, with the spring game slated for Saturday, April 23rd. Check with WeAreSC.com daily for official confirmation. Late last week, the Trojans unofficially hosted the South Florida Express 7x7 team. An all-star group comprised of some of the nation's top talent, the South Florida Express, in town for a passing tournament. And the South Florida Express squad included four-star wide receiver Brandon Innes from Miami Gardens, a huge USC Trojan recruit. As a caveat, Trojans class of 2023 five-star quarterback commit Malachi Nelson took snaps at quarterback with the South Florida Express team. In another gesture of goodwill and good luck, as he did with the Trojans women's basketball team when they were headed into the Pac-12 tournament, Trojans quarterback Caleb Williams passed out beat earphones to the 7th seed Trojans men's basketball team, which opens NCAA Midwest Region tournament play against the 10th seeded Miami Hurricanes on Friday afternoon in Greensboro, South Carolina. Tip-off time is 12:10 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on True TV. And finally, friends, We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle greatly appreciate your viewer and leadership. We appreciate and encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the red subscriber and like buttons. Greatly appreciated, and it's for free. All right, time for the first quarter competition panel. We're going to talk about the quarterback situation. First, let's meet the 2022 quarterback roster. Notable quarterbacks missing from 2021, Keaton Slovis transferred to Pitt. Jackson Hart transferred to Ole Miss. The 2020 spring quarterback candidates from the transfer portal, Caleb Williams from Oklahoma. Returner, Miller Moss. So, Marc Kulkin, you begin. Your thoughts on this position, and please predict a starter for us.
Well, I have two choices. So I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as a starter, only because he's not leaving Oklahoma to come to USC if he's not going to be the starter. What I do find really interesting, and I was discussing this over the weekend with somebody, I can't remember the last time that USC only has two scholarship quarterbacks available. Now, I understand that Mo Hassan is, just recently ruptured his Achilles, but even still, for this program, of all programs that, Heisman winners and prolific passing yardages. I mean, we just saw a tweet this past weekend where you had Carson Palmer, Mark Sanchez, Matt Leinart, and what's the last? Sam Darnold, all hanging out together. And right now, you've got two scholarship quarterbacks available for when spring camp is scheduled to start. So hopefully both arms will be available when fall camp rolls around, because they're going to be throwing a lot of passes this spring.
And your predicted starter?
Again, Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams.
Unless he gets hurt.
Unless he gets hurt. All right. Erik McKinney, shock us with your evaluation, but prediction as well.
No, the thoughts on the position are Caleb Williams. The pick for the starter is Caleb Williams. It's not, it's not crazy. And I say that, and I think we'll all sort of mention this, and I'll probably kind of trip over myself mentioning it every time. But the excitement about Caleb Williams, I don't think is meant to denigrate Miller Moss or anything like that. Miller Moss, I would be more comfortable with Miller Moss playing than I was with Jack Sears playing a few years ago, with Matt Fink playing when he was here. I think Miller Moss would be just fine. I think he's that kind of caliber quarterback. He would be a very competent USC quarterback, maybe a great one if he got the Lincoln Riley offense to himself and a bunch of time and starters reps and all of that. He's not the number one prospect in the country that Caleb Williams was, that has already run this offense successfully. That's what Caleb Williams is. That's what he'll be at USC. And I think the expectation is that is what he will be from day one, snap one of spring ball for USC. And that will be the defense. And we'll get to the defense, I know, next week. The defense is going to be, I think, more important, how that adjusts and gets going in the spring. But the story of spring, the guy who will get 85% of the press and attention and all of that, is going to be Caleb Williams.
Well, it'll be interesting though, Eric, to see how many of that percentage, how many snaps Caleb takes, because he knows the offense, and you want to protect the quarterback. So how much of the offense will be geared towards the running? And I got a little insight on that. Again, Miller's probably going to get the majority of snaps, I think, because Caleb already knows the offense.
And we've watched USC. We're used to backup quarterbacks having to take game snaps. I mean, having to be integral parts of this offense. So yeah, you don't hope for it. You want your starter to play the whole year and be healthy, but we've become accustomed to seeing backup quarterbacks take reps for USC.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll make this short and sweet. Miller Moss will make a great backup. I think he's fully capable. I think he probably at some point in time will see some action in the season, because you never know when you have also a running quarterback like Caleb Williams. You're subjected to more hits. We hope that doesn't happen for Caleb's sake. My only concern with Caleb was how would he fit in with the team in terms of all the notoriety, but he's doing just fine giving out those beat earphones to the men's and women's basketball team. The only rocking of the boat I could possibly see is if the baseball team or the rowing team says, "Oh, what about us?" He could easily say, "Well, get into a tournament or a championship and you'll get yours." But just scratching the surface, I thought he did a great job in cementing himself as a person. The players would be there. And I think it was okay for them to put it on video and show the public of Caleb Williams and what he's doing. So I'll just end it by saying it's not even a contest. Caleb gets the nod. It's a unanimous decision. So with that in mind, the bell says we move to the second quarter. Now, this will be a little bit more questions here. We talk about the running back competition. Notable losses from 2021. You got Keontae Ingram, the NFL. We assume Favai Malapai to the NFL. Kenan Christon, I think he's a portal guy. I have not heard whether he's decided where he's going. The 2022 spring candidates from the transfer portal: Travis Dye from Oregon, Austin Jones from Stanford. Returners: Darwin Barlow, Brandon Campbell. Panel, your thoughts on this position, and again, please predicted starters. So Eric, why don't you take this one to lead us off?
It's kind of the same as the quarterback for me. Travis Dye and starter Travis Dye. I think he came down here the way USC coaches jumped at him when he landed in the portal. He's a big addition. He knows the conference. He's very decorated, scored a ton of touchdowns last year. He can run, he can catch, he can pick up an offense quickly. He's a veteran player. He has played a ton of snaps. He's another guy where I think he'll get this offense pretty quickly. He's a leader, and I think he can establish himself at the top of that list. And again, it's one of those things where I don't mean to diminish what Austin Jones can do and Darwin Barlow and Brandon Campbell coming back. I think Darwin Barlow is capable of taking a big jump. Austin Jones, I think, is knocked a bit for me just because that Stanford offense is it's so hard to watch. I mean, everybody there recently who has played for David Shaw at Stanford offensively kind of drops a notch just because, again, how they're used and what they're able to do up there. But so I think he's a talent too. I think you've got some talented guys in that room. I would not be surprised if this doesn't end up, and we're talking all the way in the fall now, this doesn't end up where it's split a bunch of ways, and Travis Dye does, I think, eventually jump to the top of there. And I think he'll want to come in and make that known in the spring. Again, how much are you going to run a veteran guy like that into a wall when you're trying to establish kind of physical culture and all of that stuff in the spring? But I can see Travis Dye saying, no, I want that. I want to go. I want to set the tone a little bit. I think he's capable of doing that. So again, he's the guy that I want to see in spring ball kind of take over that leadership role. But I think you've got options, and the USC running back spot is that, right? If you're going to line up at running back at USC, you're talented. You've got the ability to do it if you get carries and put into the offense.
Mark, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, there's not a lot to really add to that. I mean, they're all basically similar size, 5'10", 6 foot, right around that, that height. Travis Dye came to USC. This is finishing school for him. He is coming to show the NFL, here's an offense that was tailor-made for my style. He runs with power, but he's also a slashing style. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's coming here to show his wares. Same thing with Austin Jones, maybe to a lesser extent. I think it's going to be interesting, though, to see of Darwin Barlow and Brandon Campbell, who sticks around past the spring. Because even though, Lincoln Riley will run the ball more frequently and more efficiently than Graham Harrell's offense, that's still 4 talented running backs. And unless they're planning to go 2 backs, I don't know, man. It's gonna be
Rayleigh Brown is, by the way, knocking right coming in the summer.
Yeah, you got Rayleigh Brown saying, "Hey, and I can line up back there. You can put me in the slot. You can fly sweep me." Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. He doesn't even show up until the summer, so decisions are still to be made.
Yeah,
but to your question, yes, Travis Dye will be the starter unless he's hurt.
All right, and I agree. Travis Dye will be the starter. He is the most attacking running back they've had in a while. He has a style unto his own. I see a little bit of Charles White toughness in him, the way he attacks a hole and the way he bounces off guys that hit him. He is, to me, the real lead guy. But I wouldn't count out Austin Jones either. I think he's tough. And remember, we're talking here for the viewers and for the listeners here. We're just talking about spring ball. And I thought a point was well taken that we don't know are any of them going to transfer out after spring ball? Obviously Dye isn't. I don't think Jones isn't.
During.
You never know these days. But to make it short and sweet, I'm all about Travis Dye. I think he's going to be a wonderful addition. And I look forward to watching him play and practice if we're given a chance to watch them practice. So with that, let's move on to halftime. We generally have a fun question at halftime, but because this is a special edition of the huddle, we're going to move right into tight ends. Let's talk about the tight ends a little bit. Notable losses from 2021, Eric Kromenhoek, who we think will probably get a shot at the NFL. Michael Trigg transferred to Ole Miss, as most of you are aware of. The 2022 candidates returning are Malcolm Epps, Josh Follow, Lake McCree, Ethan Ray, and Jude Wolf. Eric, your thoughts on the tight end position and predicted starter?
First of all, I want to apologize to the tight ends on behalf of Greg for saying this is not a fun halftime category. I think talking about tight ends can be fun.
Wait a minute. I thought Arledge wasn't here today.
He's texting me with what I need to interject here.
Man, okay, for our listeners, since Chris is on assignment in Florence, Italy, I understand, and he sends his regards and fight on to all of you, and apparently has passed on the "Let's Rip on Cats" mantra. So go right ahead and get it out of your system.
So Lake McCree came in the spring last year, and I just love watching him play. So I'm always going to have him probably maybe a notch above like where he actually exists on this team, because I think he's tough. I think he can catch. I think he'll block. And I think that he may be kind of a fit for that H-back or that sort of thing when there isn't an obvious like big fullback body on the roster right now. And Lincoln Riley has done really well using guys at that spot. It'll be interesting to see if it's a tight end that kind of plays there or how that position works in. But I really think Lake McCree is kind of, on an upward trajectory in terms of his career at USC. I think Malcolm Epps, what he did last year is pretty special, and his ability to kind of run as a bigger tight end. I think that plays in too. The other guys, it's just the injury concerns. I don't know if you can kind of put them in pen until you really see them do it. And it could be a big spring depending on how healthy they are, what they're able to do. But I think if you get a fully healthy Malcolm Epps, a fully healthy Lake McCree, I think you do have two pretty good guys at that spot. And then some wild cards where it's kind of all bonus if they can chip in a little bit. I think that's a spot, and I'm skipping past spring ball now. It's a spot where if there's a guy out there that Lincoln Riley says, no, that's the guy. That guy fits exactly kind of what I want as a tight end. Maybe that's a position where USC could go in the summer. But I think these guys will have a shot to prove themselves this spring. There's a lot of them. You're talking about Josh Follow and Ethan Ray and Jude Wolf. There's a lot of those guys that want to prove that they can get on the field and stay on the field.
So your predicted starter is?
I like that Epps McCree kind of tag team there at tight end.
Co-starters then is what you're saying.
Well, if you have like the Y tight end, the H tight end, that Lincoln Riley has used kind of two different bodies there, the traditional tight end, as well as kind of that big fullback H-back. Jeremiah Hall was the most recent guy at Oklahoma doing that.
All right, so we got your perspective. Now let's go to the great Marc Kulkin. What is your perspective on this position and starter?
I'm thinking the first person to show the want to just want to be a fullback, to block, to find a defender and say, pancake. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to open the eyes, because, this spring camp is going to be all about, keeping the culture change going and physicality, emphasizing the run game. So, I think Eric touched on it. Lake McCree is one of those guys where, he would go play football barefoot in the mud, just let's go play. He's that type of mentality. So I agree. It'll be interesting to see, Ethan, he's been around, he's been injured. Jude Wolf, he's been playing. But again, that's why I said whoever is the most willing blocker, I think is probably going to grab the attention of the coaches. So for the time being, I don't know if they're going with a 2 tight end set. Let's just go with the oldest of the group, or the one who was most productive last year, and that would be Malcolm Epps. How's that?
Okay. And let's remember that Lincoln Riley is familiar with Lake McCree and probably Malcolm X from his days at Oklahoma and recruiting.
Sure.
So he might have envisioned these guys. He certainly has watched plenty, I'm sure, film of them, saw them in at least maybe Epps a little bit in person during the Texas rivalry with Oklahoma. So he's probably got to be more familiar with the guys that are already at SC. But I'll say this: I think it's the guy that can block. The thing I'm excited about is really the tight end has been nothing but lip service to me for too long a time. I think that Lincoln Riley, in watching Oklahoma play, does not give lip service. He says we're going to use the tight end. I think they use the tight end. So I'm kind of excited to see how they'll use them. I know that a lot of it was the H-back stuff, which you guys have already mentioned. We'll see. Malcolm Epps looks like a guy that could really be physical. So I don't know if this is going to up his game at all with Lincoln Riley. But I will go. And I know that a lot of it's situational, but I'm going to go with Malcolm Epps just at the beginning of spring. I need to see that Lake McCree can be very physical when he blocks, and perhaps he can. So I'm going to cop out here with co-starters Epps and McCree, which will probably upset Jude Wolf and Ray and Follow. So
Eric, call Chris and tell him that Greg's just screwing up again.
I'm sure he knows.
And Mark is trying again to reassure Chris, who's probably watching this somewhere. I don't know if he's in Rome now, but Mark is like that guy that works as the law clerk for one of the Supreme Court justices.
All right.
So anyway, let us move on here. I think we pretty much covered that part of on the
Fun halftime segment. Yeah, nailed it.
Nailed it. All right. Before we begin the second half, a reminder that you're watching or listening to We Are SC's Inside the Trojans Huddle. This week's panelists include Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, and I'm Greg Katz. We encourage you to check out wearesc.com, part of the On3 network, and become a subscriber to the best coverage of USC football and Trojans athletics. And as a bonus for the curious, there's currently a free We Are SC 7-day trial free trial bonus to view our On3 Plus exclusive content, which includes analysis, breaking stories, and data for USC football, basketball, and balance of USC athletics. All right. Third quarter. Okay. We'll move on to the third quarter. We're going to talk about a really competitive group here, I think. We're going to talk about the wide receiver spring roster. Notable wide receiver losses from 2021. Drake London, of course, is going to go high in the NFL draft. Brew McCoy, we know, is in the portal. Joseph Manjack, the fourth, has transferred to Houston. The 2022 spring wide receiver candidates from the transfer portal are Terrell Bynum from Washington, Brenden Rice from Colorado, and Mario Williams from Oklahoma. Returners, noted returners, Gary Bryant Jr., Kyle Ford, John Jackson III, Michael Jackson III, Jake Smith, Kyron Ware Hudson, Taj Washington, and a freshman, CJ Williams, modern day. Panel, your thoughts on what I think is going to be a very competitive position and your predicted starters. So, Mark, lead us off here.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the position group on offense that is probably going to have the most eyes on it. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Only because that's a crowded room right now with a lot of talent. I don't know who's going to survive the spring, but there's going to be some hurt feelings. So, man, I don't know. Are we going to just go with a 3 wide receiver starting set? Is that?
Yeah, that would be good because we have to know Lincoln Riley's offense, and I would say we're looking at probably 3.
Okay.
Sure.
So my 3 starting wide receivers are going to be Gary Bryant, Mario Williams, and Terrell Bynum.
All right. I'm sure they're happy if they watch the Inside the Trojans Huddle.
And again, this is just all speculation right now. And I'm doing this. My rationale is he wants experience. He wants guys, Mario Williams and Caleb, they're going to have that connection. Gary Bryant is that speed. Terrell Bynum is that more experience and a guy who's coming to USC to show the NFL, hey, I'm ready. Let me show you what I can do in a real offense.
All right. Well, Erik, we're talking about a real offense here compared to what we've been subjected to the last couple of years. So
that could have been the halftime topic.
Was that a halftime topic?
That could have been it.
It could have been it. All right. What are you looking at? What do you see?
So Mark's point about the wide receiver room being a very talented room is, I think, absolutely true. The issue with that is at wide receiver, I think what's been proven is you don't need 7 pretty good wide receivers. You need 1, 2, maybe 3 elite guys. And we saw that sort of firsthand last year with what Drake London was able to do. He separated himself so much that nobody else could kind of keep up and fill that gap when he went down. So USC needs, you're talking about hurt feelings and guys that aren't playing. That's how this has to shake out. This has to shake out where you get 2 or 3 guys that just separate themselves and elevate their games this spring. And I think that's better for the team rather than let's try to keep 9 guys in a rotation and happy and catching 3 passes a game. That's a tough way, to keep your offense going. Mario Williams, I think for the reason you mentioned, he makes a lot of sense. He's a shifty, elite speed, quick space kind of kind of guy, and again brings the relationship with Caleb Williams over from their time at Oklahoma last year. Gary Bryant to me is that guy. It feels like every year, or at least kind of recent memory, we've come into spring ball and there's been the guy from last year who you kind of knew was going to take that step forward in the spring and kind of take over the team. Recently Michael Pittman did that, and we saw him on Amon-Ra. I think he was kind of set to do that in 2020 before things shut down, and then Drake London, that same kind of thing this past spring. Gary Bryant, I think, is the guy that you want to do that, and if he can, that'll go a long way, I think, for this offense. So he's, again, I think I have no problem sticking him in there as a guess at one of the other starters. And then I think the third is really up for grabs. Mark went with Terrell Bynum. I'll say Brenden Rice. I think he's got quickness and long speed, kind of a bigger guy. If Kyle Ford is fully healthy, he gives you a much different look than Gary Bryant and Mario Williams. So he's a guy there. But again, it can't just be a rotational piece. I think you need 2-3 guys, to really step up. So I think that's why most of the eyes are going to be on this, because you do need to find kind of a pecking order. Sure, it'd be great for all of them to be great, but establishing that kind of elite guy, and maybe not to the same degree where Drake London's getting 70% of the passes, but that kind of idea I think is important for that wide receiver spot this spring. You need some guys to really step up and elevate their game.
All right. Did you want to give us your three again?
I think that was it. Like I went with Mark. I think Mario Williams and Gary Bryant are the two, I think, the easy guys to kind of put. There's a lot of reasons to think that they'll be the guy. I went with Brenden Rice. I could see Kyle Ford again, kind of if he's fully healthy and ready to go, gives you kind of a different dynamic, that big receiver out there on the outside. But again, neither of us mentioned Michael Jackson Jr. That guy could be ready to make a huge leap this year. What we saw last spring from him, and it took a little while to go in the fall, but there's a lot to like about Michael Jackson III. And there's a lot. We didn't mention Taj Washington either.
A starter last year.
Yeah. So again, you could throw 5-6 guys out there. You just, I don't know if in the end that's going to be the best thing for the offense, where you don't know who the leader is at wide receiver.
I'm going to say there's going to be at least 2 receivers that leave this group during or after spring.
I think
it's just they can't survive with that many.
Wait, I mean, that's the times now, right? You're not going to keep 9 guys at one spot happy when they can go and play somewhere else. It's kind of that's baked in to college football at this point.
Every single one of USC's receivers are a number 1 or number 2 at pretty much any other program in the country.
Well, I will chime in with this. I think that you're both pretty much right on. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. I would suggest to all the receivers, don't drop any passes, first of all. That's a big key. Show that you can take a hit. Show that you can block. You're going to have to. The competition is going to be that tough. I do think that Mario Williams will start. I think he's already proven himself. It's a natural for him and Caleb Williams. I don't think it's a matter of, he didn't transfer here to sit. Well, did anybody come to sit? But I do think that he'll be one of the starters, in my opinion. I do think that Gary Bryant, if he's healthy and ready to go, I think he'll be one of the starters to start, which gets me down to the third player. If Bynum plays like he did a couple of years ago at Washington, he's a really good player. Brenden Rice, of course, people think because he's Jerry Rice's son that maybe there's preferential treatment, but he's really good. He just didn't play in a particularly pass-oriented or pass-friendly, and I think there's a lot of intrigue to him. I do have concern about some of the other receivers, and I go along with Mark. I don't know if they're all 1 or 2 in the country per se.
I said at most programs.
Most. Okay, not. We'll go with most. I'll accept that. I think that there are going to be people transferring out. I totally agree with you on that one, Mark. I'll keep it to myself who I think will transfer out, because I don't think that's fair to anybody, but to my own personal taste. It'll be interesting to see if I'm right at the end of spring. But, I do think that Michael Jackson, you really have to pay attention to to his ability to electrify a crowd. I think that he could come in there. I think it's going to be who can make the big strike, take it to the house almost on any given time, and I think that's going to show in spring practice and in there. So if you have to pin me down, and I am fascinated by Jake Smith. I want to see if this guy's healthy. What can he do? But if I had to pick a third one, geez, this is tough. I'm going to go with, okay, I'm going to surprise everybody here. No, I'm not. What am I going to do? See, I'm up for that third one. It's so open to me.
I got Chris on the line.
Okay, thank you.
He's going to pick a tight end.
That's right. I guess I'll go with Bynum. I think I'm going to go with Bynum just because I think he has the experience and he has proven to be an elite player as well. But I think that any of the top 5 or 6 guys could really compete hard, and you wouldn't have a problem with who they are. So
well, here's something else. Here's the final for me on this point.
Yeah,
they don't bring in this many transfers into that room if they were satisfied with what they already had.
Agree. Total and an excellent point. An excellent point. And I think that is serving as a message to the guys who are returning. You better be ready to go and show us what you've got. And I think it'll be a pretty cold-blooded competition. And I think it'll be a pretty cold-blooded evaluation by the coaching staff. It'll be fascinating to see how it all shakes out at the end of spring. I can guarantee you that. All right. So that rolls us now into the fourth quarter. And of course, I will dedicate this torch lighting, which you can all see, to whoever you are, Chris. Arledge, this one's for you, buddy.
We did not learn enough Italian this week to be able to shout him out.
Well,
I'm sure you got his own
I
water
will
right
say, when he said he couldn't make it because of some very good reasons, I did text him back and say arrivederci. I was hoping that he would know what that means. As most of you that follow the show, Chris, highly popular, great guy, and pretty most of the time he likes to think he's got all the answers and he's always right about everything. And most of the time he is. Now if he's watching this, he's probably choking on his ravioli or spaghetti. I don't know, whatever he's having over there. But we wish him a good time, as we said before. So let's get into the fourth quarter. I can let the candle torch here burn a little bit. Let's take a look at the offensive line, because I know this is going to get a lot of, there's been already a lot of conversation on, is it going to be better under a new system? But let's look at the notable losses. First of all, Liam Jimmons is headed to the NFL draft. Jalen McKenzie, same thing, NFL draft. Casey Collier, I'm not quite sure. Is he in the portal now?
Yes, he's gone.
He's in the portal. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. And then, of course, the candidates are from the transfer portal. Just one, Bobby Haskins, former 3-star player out of high school. He's physical player out of the University of Virginia. He's transferred in. Returners, Ty Buchanan, Justin Dedich, Andres Derwick, Cortland Ford, Maximus Gibbs, who's back on offense, we understand. Andrew Millick, Jonah Monheim, Mason Murphy, if he's recovered from surgery. Brent Nealon, returning center. Gino Quinones, Jason Rodriguez, Caden Stevens, and of course, our third team AP All-America choice, Andrew Voorhees. All right, gentlemen, your thoughts on the position and your predicted 5 starters. All right, Erik, why don't you lead us off on this one and your thoughts?
I mean, the offensive line has gotten so much attention the last few years. They were fine last year. I think for the most part, they were pretty good. And yeah, the expectation is they will take another step forward. This is not a position. Everyone, when they talk about Lincoln Riley's offense, it's quarterbacks, it's wide receivers, it's running backs, sort of in that order. He does not mess around with the offensive line. This is not something where he just puts them in the corner and says, okay, get back to me on Saturday and we'll see how things are going. He spends a lot of time kind of figuring out how the offensive line works in there. And Josh Henson is going to be, the offensive line coach, is going to be a huge part of this program and this team and all. I mean, he got the offensive coordinator title to come over here to USC. They went out and got him. And I think Lincoln Riley liked kind of how he operates and how he'll fit in. This is an offense, again, when for an offense where the quarterback gets talked about first, you talk to people who cover Oklahoma, this thing ends up 50-50-ish in terms of run pass. This is a run heavy kind of air raid, and it's something where they kind of buckle a little bit if you try to put air raid on this offense, because it is so run heavy and so run dominant. When the offensive line can make that happen, that is going to be an absolute key for this spring. Is can this offensive line, or I guess how quickly can this offensive line run Lincoln Riley's offense to get to a point where they can run the ball whenever they need to. That GT counter, it's got to be, this offensive line has got to be able to be mobile, agile, all of that stuff, get out in space, get to the second level and put people on their backs. That's going to be, I think, a big test for this offensive line, and a big challenge. Probably every day will be made some kind of mention about them doing that. It's, for me, the starting lineup is kind of an easy guess at this point, because it sort of fills back in on what is coming back, and that's Cortland Ford at left tackle. I think Andrew Voorhees I guess you could make the case left guard or right guard, but if he sticks at left guard, and then Brett Nealon at center, Justin Dedich at right guard, and I think Bobby Haskins is probably your first guy up at right tackle. The guy that I'm really interested to see is Mason Murphy. He was taking some big strides last year as a true freshman in practice. He was a guy where almost every practice you'd kind of say, look at him. When he went down with that injury, you just hope it doesn't kind of slow his progress too much, because I think with the way the season progressed and how things were kind of falling apart at the end of it, he's a guy that I think could have seen some time there in those last few games, just to get his feet wet and see how things were going. So again, there's guys there. Maximus Gibbs is always going to be kind of a fan favorite to see if he can play guard, if he can move enough, like I said, to be able to be an asset there. But you've got guys, you've got experience, and I think that maybe you don't have those elite national, top 10 picks in the NFL, but considering there's a 4-8 team that Lincoln Riley is taking over, I can't imagine he's too sort of depressed about what the offensive line looks like and who he has to work with up front. Skipping over spring ball, this might be another spot where we see a guy or two come in from the transfer portal, but a lot to work with. And I think spring maybe could tell the most about this position, how it's going to look in the fall.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, you have, are you on the same line as Erik, or do you see things shaking out differently?
Oh, no. Erik and I are in lockstep right now. To actually support what he just said. Over the weekend, I received some really cool information about what's going on with winter conditioning and the offensive line. And people might be surprised to know there have been over 700 different plays already installed into this offense. I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure I heard that number correctly, because to me, 700 sounds like a Paul Hackett playbook. But people need to understand this. Lincoln Riley's offense is 65% run, 45%, or excuse me, 65-35. 65% run, 35% pass. And of the pass, those are options. So again, this is all about the quarterback and the offensive line, seeing what's in front of them and making the adjustment. So as far as the O-line goes, I think USC's got a lot coming back. Clay McGuire did a fantastic job, and had he been allowed to be more balanced, like Erik had mentioned earlier, who knows how good USC could have been last year. It wasn't until the end of the year where they kind of forced Graham to run the ball. And at that point, it was just too late. These guys were trained to pass block all year, and they couldn't get that mindset, and they couldn't change quick enough. So I'm going Cortland Ford left tackle. I would love, if it was up to me, I would put Andrew Voorhees at right tackle. And if Mason Murphy can handle the right tackle position, great. Put him out there. You got Voorhees at left guard, not Brett at center, and Justin Diedrich at right guard. You've got a really nice, solid, experienced offensive line with a really talented dude at right tackle. That's as your youngest guy. So there we go. There's your offensive line.
Neither of us mentioned Jonah Monheim, who I think, if he's your 6th, 7th guy, you're
and that's the beauty.
Okay.
Jonah Monheim can play tackle or guard. I think he's probably more comfortable playing guard. Again, let's find out in the spring. Hopefully you and I and pull Greg out of the cave and we'll get a chance to see maybe a little bit. But everybody's concerned about this group. For me on offense, this is a group to be the least concerned about. How's that? I think Clay McGuire did that good of a job with him last year that Josh Henson can come in now, kind of just sandpaper those rough edges, teach them how to run block first, pass block second. And I think, yeah. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of movement in the portal with this group. That's just my opinion.
Caleb Williams is a guy who can erase some mistakes from an offensive line also. So Jackson Dart could do that a little bit. Caleb Williams is the same kind of guy.
Yeah. Oops. 10-yard gain turns into a 90-yard touchdown. So there you go.
And I think that's an excellent point. We saw what Sam Darnold could do. We've seen it time and time again. That if you have a mobile, maneuverable quarterback allowed to get out there, I think Jackson Dart, when he's healthy,
Miller Moss Miller Moss doesn't have stone feet. He can move too.
No, you're absolutely correct. I first of all, I'll tell you what, I have been to many, many camps like you guys have been to. And the one thing that you notice when they start listing 3-star, 4-star, 5-star linemen, you know that each step represents an athletic ability. Okay. A lot of it can be in the intangibles, the intensity, the desire, the motivation, but just pure athletic ability. Most 3-star players are not as gifted athletically as a 4-star or as a 5-star. So what we're going to find out is in spring ball, who has matured from a athletic 3-star into an athletic 4-star. We would not be able to find that out under the past offense under Graham Harrell. But we're going to find out just who can actually pull, as Erik mentioned, the counter tray play, who can actually move out and be athletic enough to go out to the other side of the defensive line of scrimmage and kick out on a tackle or a defensive end. And that's going to be a key. I look at a guy like Maximus Gibbs. Yes, he's going to have to be a guard in this offense, I believe. If I don't see him pulling out as a tackle and trapping a defensive end or a linebacker, but he might be quick enough now to get out there and save himself a few feet as a offside guard. So I want to see how that happens. In terms of bringing Bobby Haskins in, I think they didn't bring him in. I think Mark touched on kind of like that. They didn't bring him in because they just needed just a body. They must have saw something that they wanted to see, his particular style of play. So I think when it comes down to it, I know that Justin Diedrich has to start somewhere. He's just too much of a football player to be just kind of using a Dodger comparison, a super utility player. I think he's past that point now. So I would go with Cortland Ford at left tackle. I would go with Voorhees at left guard. Obviously, Brett Nealon at center. I would also go with Nealon at right guard. And I don't know. I just get the feeling that Haskins could be the right tackle because he has the experience, and they say he has a lot of nasty in him. And
he's wearing a boot right now. He's not playing this spring.
Well, if he's not going to be in the spring because he's wearing a boot, first of all, that's news to me. But then again, we don't know much about anything that's going on. But if you say so, I'll take you for what your word for it. So if Haskins is not going to play, and we're just talking about spring, I think it could be an open season for a number of players. I don't know. I still think that Monheim might get another shot at seeing what he could do at tackle. He had his ups and downs last year. I know that. So we'll see. So with that in mind, you know what? It's going to be a position certainly that we're all going to watch. And we don't know whether the practices are going to be open to the media. We hope they will be. But it's like anything else. Practices are like studying for a test. The real test will be when you see them in scrimmages, and of course the public scrimmage, and then you'll get maybe somewhat of an idea, not much, but somewhat of an idea of what they're doing. Mark, you want to add something?
No, I'm just nodding along and agreeing with you. I was going to do this in my Monday morass day, but I didn't get a chance to. Something came up, so I'm going to put something out for tomorrow. But winter conditionings, it's been a kind of a remember of the Titans type of off season. They are really trying to see who's going to stick around, and they've been focused on that offensive line, Greg. So I heard over the weekend that there was quite a few vomit buckets being filled up.
I will say, since you touched on it, I'll just conclude this portion with I am a little bit, shall we say, numb to new conditioning coaches, and this is going to be the best we've ever seen. We're in better condition. The vomit buckets are out there. I have no doubt that some guys do make a difference. I like Chris Carlisle, when he's with Pete Carroll, really made a difference, because Chris was a coach, and many times I'd hear him say, I don't like the way he turns his hips. I don't like the way his arm length. I mean, he was really into the technique stuff. I don't know much about the guy from Oklahoma that's come over. I'll admit that. I've heard good things about him, but we'll see. I know that players always feel when they get a new conditioning coach, he's the best we've ever had, and we're learning new things. And so, okay, great. But we'll see what happens when how it translates onto the field. So anyway, we're going to have a brief overtime here. We spent much of our time on going over the offense. By the way, next week we'll do the same thing with the defense and break it down for you. So we're in overtime. It's time to answer viewer questions in a free-for-all answer format. A reminder to those of you that are watching or you're listening, if you'd like to submit a question that we can answer here or give our opinion on the Inside the Trojans Huddle, just go to either the Gary P. or We Are SC members message boards. From there, you'll see the topic thread regarding questions from Inside the Trojans Huddle. Now, we're going to limit this to kind of a fun single question here, and Erik gives you a chance to chime in, I think, on this one as well. We mentioned, and I have done it in a column, what kind of music did you want to see the Trojan team come out of the locker room in the past? Eminem, okay. We saw that. I was thinking about some other songs this week. One of our questionnaires here, DBL, said, how could you guys get the walk-up music so wrong? This was easy and so LA. Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. All right. So how do you react to that? Erik, what do you think about the walk-up music? All right. Would you be happy with Guns N' Roses?
I think that one would be fine. Honestly, if they're going to win 11, 12 games a year, I will listen to Lincoln Riley do spoken word poetry as the team comes out of the tunnel. I was at school. I was at USC when, they started doing Eminem and that sort of thing. So that has kind of sentimental, meaning to me, being there and watching that. I like the idea of kind of picking something iconic and sticking with it forever, or at least, as long as you can. And the other way I think you can go is I liked when they kind of introduced, when the Coliseum got done, when they put that big video board up there in the closed end, and it was kind of the first time they really dove into their own sort of media production and the hype video and all of that kind of stuff. Just kind of that sort of thing, watching the team, they I think it was like a dozen guys they brought in to do kind of, Nickel Roby did like a backflip, and Matt Barkley was on there too. That sort of stuff. Like I like that. I like kind of a new video every year. And I think you could maybe do a song. I'll tell you what, you let Mateo come in as part of this 2023 class, and maybe you let him kind of write a song every year that he's at USC for them to play. So Guns N' Roses, that, Welcome to the Jungle, I think is fine. I don't know what kind of connection the guys on the team would have to that at this point. When I listen to the radio and you've got oldies that are the songs it's just, I can't listen to oldie stations very long, because makes me feel like I'm about 400.
Yeah, when you turn on K Earth 101 and you're listening to No Doubt, something is wrong.
Something mid 2000s. Yeah, yeah, that's rough. But I don't think he's DBL. I don't think he's wrong. I think that's something right off the top there that would work as kind of a pump up song for USC to come out to.
Mark, you have any final thoughts on the walkout song?
Yeah, it's a pump you up song. I mean, I don't know why USC and the Coliseum, Trojans, you get the jungle connotation, but sure, why not? I'm not going to argue.
Well, I'll wrap
Here's
it
where
up.
I was going to go with this, but Erik kind of stole a little bit when he brought up Mateo. Greg, we need to have a tight end doing it. A tight end needs to sing whatever the introduction song is.
Plus the halftime performance.
There you go.
All right. Well, as my son would say, Dad, I'll take that under advisement. Well, I'll just say this. I wrote a column, my first is the column on Sunday about ideas, more of a Hollywood glitzy type of thing. I suggest maybe the team should vote on it because they're the ones coming out and they know what's the latest hit. Maybe that would be a good thing. I'd like them to maybe the team comes out, forms a spirit tunnel, or the band forms a spirit tunnel. I looked at a lot of different videos of teams coming out. I think Virginia Tech, there's nothing that to me that's any better than Virginia Tech, Enter Sandman. And the way they do it, I don't know if that fits well to the type of crowds that come to the Coliseum, but it's pretty impressive production. But I would like to see 1 week the offense introduced, kind of NFL style, the defense introduced the style, let the team, the non-starters or the players on the other unit form a spirit tunnel. And, though these are just ideas, they'll do what they think is best, but I think it's always good to try to get some new ideas. And since we are getting a fresh start with Lincoln Riley, seeing something along the lines of new presentation would be kind of cool in my opinion.
I think Sandstorm is always kind of one that gets brought up as, this kind of thing pretty ubiquitous. I will tell you, if the team votes, the only thing I can guarantee is that I will have never heard of the song that goes. It will be fun. It will be fun to listen to. It will pump them up, and I will have no idea who sings it or what the lyrics are to it.
I just don't want to see them doing TikTok dances on the big screen.
It's coming. It's coming. That's the next step in NIL, where you can sell an NFT of the guy dancing out of the tunnel.
And on that note, that's a wrap for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. A reminder, viewers and listeners, next Tuesday, we'll go over the pre-spring practice defensive edition. So until then, a big thank you to this week's panel of Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, and a special thank you to all of you who have been watching or listening Inside the Trojans Huddle. Until next Tuesday, this is your host, Greg Katz, reminding all of you and wishing you all, fight on, everybody.